Hey everybody, Zane Corriher with Fortune 500 Insights here, and it's my distinct honor and pleasure to be talking to the esteemed Anthony McCarthy today. Tony, it's really good to see you, man. How are you?
Well, as we say here, Zane, I'm above ground as always, which is a good thing.
That's always a good thing, and glad you're above ground. So Tony and I met about 2 years ago at a marketing conference, and where a lot of the world's top internet marketers came in to meet. And I happened to be lucky enough to cross his path, and so Tony, I'm excited to be able to ask you some questions about your journey and what you know and where you've been. So thanks for the opportunity to sit down and talk with you.
Yeah, and when you asked me to do this, saying like, guys, the reality is this is a no bars conversation. So it's as I lovingly call it when I speak, I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you can ask me anything, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll see. Well. Anyway, look, I would love to for you to get your story kind of out there and talk about how you got started in business.
I got started in business by accident, which is the God's honest truth about it is I wasn't good in school. It wasn't that I didn't have the ability, I didn't have the interest. I had a pretty not good experience in school. We won't go into all the drama and the melodrama that going through the Christian Brothers. Nothing that bad happened, but I rebelled. So when I finished school, I did my German exam because I did it as an extra subject. On a Friday, and I remember it vividly. And on the Sunday, the reason I remember vividly, just by the way, is I walked out with my school bag, and there's a big river where I live in Ireland, a city called Cork, and the centre of Cork is an island, so the river goes around it and it branches out. So I just walked across the first bridge I saw and threw my school bag into the water, and that was it. I was done. I was done. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was done with this, right? And then on the Sunday, I came home late at night, and there was a note on the hall table from my father saying, "You're going to Money Point for a few days to do some work." So I was going out with a girl at the time, and I rang her and I said, "I'm going to Money Point for a few days to do some work." She said, "Where's Money Point?" I said, "I don't know." What work you doing? No idea. And what it landed up is I landed up being basically a labourer, a contractor labourer, mixing industrial resins. And a couple of days turned out to be 6 months, right? So that was my first working experience. I was away from home. I was up the country, small little village, all week, and then back home at the weekends. And to be honest, it taught me how to work, and it taught me the meaning of work, because I was delivering 2 buckets of resin. I was handling at 60. I was 16 and a half when I finished school. Right? So I was handling 25 kg bags and 50 kg drums of liquid, and I was pouring and mixing them, getting 2 buckets down a ladder, up another ladder, dropping it to the guys, taking another 2 buckets back up and moving. It was just as well I was 16 and a half. Wouldn't like to try and do one run now, let alone all the runs I was doing. And it was an interesting experience. And then the company offered me a position in Germany, the resin company. So I went and went to Germany and lived there for 3 months and couldn't hack it. Just couldn't hack it. I couldn't hack the pace of life. I was 17 at this stage. I wanted the world ahead of me. I was living in a small remote town in Germany with a family who were very nice, but they were very German. Like, I'm Irish, so if I'm told to be home at 4:30, I'll be home before 5. Right? I get in at 4:32. They're asking me why was this so late. It was like, what? Right, and they didn't do like they were all a couple. No, they were very nice to me. They took me into their home. The guy worked in the factory. They couldn't have been nicer to me. I don't want to come across as begrudging or anything, but I didn't like it. So I took what money I'd earned and went around Germany for 3 weeks, and to people that we knew, because my father had a lot of German friends. He speaks German as well. And then I came home again, not knowing what to do. So then I was sitting there, and my sister was building a house, and it was a very strange house at the time. It was a timber frame, which would be very unusual over here back then. And the mason came along and said, "I need a mechanical mixer," because he had to build the chimney shaft first, and the frame hung off the house, right? So my father says, "No problem, I'll be home for the home, do nothing." And I then went off and built my sister's house for the next 9 months. And my father paid me 50 quid a week or 60 quid a week. It was enough to go out. And back then and get in trouble. And I had access to his car, my mother's cars at the time. So it was fine. We did that and the rest of it. So then my father said, look, come on anyway, start working with me. And he wanted me to go selling. This kind of is where this journey really begins, right? And selling, like, what? I'm now 17 years of age, right? Selling industrial resin. So the people I'd had to sell to were architects and engineers and specifiers, right? I'm 17. So if funny enough, how the world works is I said, okay, I have to do a sales course. And my father said, no hassle. I know a guy, actually our next door neighbor, you can talk to him. I said, what, Mr. Keller? I don't want it. What? It turned out that man was the top salesman for Avery Labels in the world. And he taught me the story, which is an interesting story. We won't go into know because this video will be 12 months long, right? But I did my first sales course with him. And then I went off and did one with him and then started selling. And then I wanted to go a small bit more higher end. So I did another sales course, which was very expensive at the time. It was about £800. Now, when you consider I bought my first car back then for about £2,000, wasn't a new car, obviously, but like it wasn't that old. It was only a couple of years old. You have an idea of the value of how much I spent on the training. And that was, again, between what I learned from both of them, it was two opposite sides of the same coin. It was very interesting to see the different dynamic. And then I went to what was lovingly called the Yellow Pages and got all the architects and engineers, and I sent them letters. Imagine that, letters. We got very high after about the 30th letter, we got very technology based. We bought a sponge.
That was about the extent of it back then.
Yeah, but there was no self-adhesive stamps or anything else. Like, this is what we're talking about. So I sent out about 600 letters, much to my father's annoyance, right? And it was like, this is ridiculous. And then what I did learn was this, and this is even for people today if you're selling, right? Because I killed people. I learned this when I was 17 and a half. And it drives me insane when I see it. When people put the end of the letter, should you have any further inquiries, please do not hesitate to contact us. That sentence drives me insane, because what the sentence should be is, I will be in contact with you within the next 5 to 7 days if you have any questions on the above. Because my attitude, even back then and still is, if I've given you the time, I want an answer. If I've given you the time, I want an answer. It's the same on the internet. If I give you some time, I want you to make a decision at some point in time, because otherwise you're just flapping around and your statistics and your numbers all go nuts. So I rang up eventually and I made my first sale, went to a meeting. My father didn't come because he thought it was nonsense. Made my first sale, and my first sale was £680,000, right? Came out and go, what do I do now? It was nuts, right? And it was just, and no, I wasn't that naive. I had the guy over from the factory with me. I had a team in with me for that type of order. Like in today's money, that would be about 3 million, right? So I had a whole team. We all look professional because I knew I'm 17 and a half. They're not going to give a contract of that value to a 17 and a half year old, no matter how good I thought I was. So that's what started. We were doing that. It was a seasonal business. It was Christmas and shutdowns. Hated the fact that it was working Christmas. And one of the guys left the company and went to a ceramic tile company. And this is kind of, this bit to me is always a good lesson for me even still, because it's about, it's like, the story, Zane, very well, the same as I do, Fields of Diamonds, right? The guy who sells the farm because he keeps breaking his plow and he goes off and, it's ridiculous. So he goes off and he sells the farm and he goes away off and he goes looking for diamonds, right? Because it's a new thing and he dies of starvation. And the guy who buys the farm goes off and gets a geological examination done of the stones that are lying all over the ground. It's called acres of diamonds, and finds out they're actually raw diamonds. And he's now worth millions. It's supposedly a true story, and it's supposed to be something around the beers. Whether that is true or not, I have no idea, but it's a good parable. So we went selling. Dad walked in literally with the brochure and said, go sell them. No idea what tiles were, right? No clue. Did the research. Back then, there was no Google. You actually had to do these things like read books and reports. Right? It took weeks, not hours or minutes, to get the research. Like I had to write away for all these reports and all the standards to understand the rest of it. It's funny when you look at it back now to where we are now. Right? And I went off, set up 7 shops that I sold around the country. I drove around the country, and I kind of realized very quickly that I would sell a container of tiles back then for 5,000. We were the agents. We got 10% commission, so it was £500, right? So on a run, I would make 2 to 4 or 6 grand, depending on the orders, right? And I wasn't in control of the orders, which frustrated me. I no control, because it depended on how much the guy sold, and it was kind of remote selling to a degree. But when I was sitting with the guys, like, and I'd be waiting, the guys could be taking in 2, 3, 4, 5,000 pounds in sales. While I'm sitting there, and I kept going home to my father. I said, "We're at the wrong end of this. We're at the dumb end of this, right?" But my father didn't want to move, and I'm not being derogatory about my father. My father was a very intelligent businessman, but had been knocked in previously. But my father had been worth at one stage close to £1 million Irish, which in today's terms would be close to about 30 million, because it would have been way even before I was there, and owed 200,000. And within 2 years, they owed 500,000, and the property they had was worth 200,000. Right, so he got wiped out. So, and again, having gone through some of the trials I've gone through, I can understand that. No, as a kid, couldn't understand it at all. But eventually, one of the guys in Cork that we were dealing with closed down the account. I was actually in holidays in Portugal, and my father rang me and said he's after closing the account. What we do? I said, "Thank God, find the building. I have the whole thing set up." Right. So I then turned my customers into suppliers. I went to Germany with the guys that did the industrial resin. They did tiles as well. They supplied us, and I arrived back, and within 2.5 weeks we were open. We had a 10,000 square foot showroom, our premises. We had a showroom that was an old car garage. We had 10 pieces of plywood down the bit of the floor like that, and we were open. And the very first day we were there, a woman walks in. She says, "How are you? It's lovely. Oh, these are great. I have a peach bathroom suite. What would go with that?" I went, "No problem. Just 1 second. We've new tiles just in, and I think there's an absolute stunning one for peach." Back then, there used to be these things called bat seals for the bats. I had to go out and see what color peach was. I had no idea what color peach was. Like, not a clue. I go out and I was thinking, that looks good, and I found, actually, ironically, it was good with color. So we built that business up to, I think the top year was about 3.6 million. Right, when you consider we have a population of 250,000, and we made mistakes, and we did stuff and great stuff and wrong stuff that could take a video of its own right. And in the end of the day, my father and myself decided we weren't suitable to be in business with each other. I wanted to grow. My father wanted to not. The challenge was we spent so much time in fighting. I understand family business. We spent so much time doing young bull, old bull, as I now lovingly call it, that when we opened, we were 1 of 7. When we closed, we were 1 of 40. You had to pass 6 tile shops in any direction to get to us. And the other side of it is, and this is why I understand so much with retail now, is that there just wasn't the population base for that number of suppliers. But the property became valuable, so we sold the property, right?
So let me ask you this question, because you've said a number of really interesting things, but I'm really interested to kind of poke you here on something I'm picking up.
Otherwise, I'll never shut up.
No, you're good. I'm interested to hear more about this theme that I'm hearing run the course of when you jumped into business. So at 16 and a half, you take your book bag, which is what we call it here in the States, and you toss it in the water, and then you go to work. And then you go to Germany, you go into sales, you make this big sale, and what next? And you step into that, you go into tiles, and you tell the customer, "I know exactly the thing for your peach." And you go, so you seem to have this theme of just sort of taking action and figuring it out as you go. And I'm curious how that has worked for you over the course of your professional career.
It has worked extremely well and extremely bad. That's the reality. Mostly well. I still do it. I use an expression of a friend of mine in the UK now, which is go out and get in trouble. Right? Because what I find with a lot of people and a lot of businesses that we talk to is it's paralysis by analysis. Right? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? What if that happens? Oh, what will people think? What will people say? What will people do? And I don't really care. And that's not quite true either, let's be honest, right? Because we all care behind it all. But you with the length of time I'm at it, it's a case of, all right, especially with where the rest of the journey goes and having to get back up again, having been knocked down, you kind of like, what people say to me, I don't know how you do it. And I look at them and go, but what's the alternative? So if you don't take action, if you don't go out and do something, if there's something that you think is right, how do you know? If you sit at home and you do nothing, you're never going to know. If you go out and you fail, I'm okay with that. I don't think failure is a bad thing as long as you learn, right? And the other side of it is that if you don't take action, then what do you do, right? So for me, it's always been, back then it was just circumstance. And to be honest with you, right, I had a neck like I was going to say something bad. I had a neck like a jockey's backside, like, right? You know, it was just, I was a kid. I didn't know. Life hadn't taught me that there was a downside. There was no downside. Like one of the deals I negotiated for the tile business is I started realizing we weren't making big sales, right? We were making all these nice sales and it was great and all the rest, but we weren't making the big sales. So I went to the manufacturers and I learned very quickly, right, that with the manufacturers, I would go to, say, the Bologna show or the Valencia show, which is Italy and Spain, respectively. And I would go and they'd have all these new tiles and then you come back and you'd order all the stuff and you got in a container. You had no idea what you got. And then half of the stuff that you wanted didn't come because they didn't make it. So I learned very quickly that I used to go to the manufacturers 3 months. I go to the show, walk around, shake their hand, see all the trends that are coming, and then I go visit them 2 months later, right? Because what I found was there's 2 things happening. One was the fact that I knew what was really trending because they had made it, so I could buy it. And the other side of it is I realized that we were 3 years behind the market. So what they were getting rid of, we were selling for big money. So if I was in the factory, I was able to do deals with them, right? So, and then what I did is I turned around to them and said, look, guys, we don't have quantities. If we get somebody comes in and they want 3,000 square meters, we don't have it, right? And there's big projects happening. Why don't you give us the stock, right? It's sitting on your roads anyway. No, the interesting thing with that was they couldn't turn off the kilns. It was more expensive to turn off the kilns than manufacture the tiles. So they were stockpiling back then, like this is 30 years ago, they were stockpiling like out on the street. You could actually drive down into Swallow, you could drive down all the area, because Italy is very clever. It clusters all its manufacturing, right? You could actually drive down and like you could go and fill the car with boxes and tiles. I can carry it off out. Nobody would know or care, right? So I was looking at all of this stuff and we bought. So I said, look, let's take it from there to us. We'll sell it. And every month, then I'll pay you. And I'll set up this. So within 3 months, we went from kind of a stock base of 100, 120,000 to over $1 million, right? Which blew our sales that way. The thing we didn't do is we didn't sell off the stuff that didn't work. That was the mistake that we made, you know. And that's what I'm saying. Is sometimes the action is a double-sided coin, because the fast stuff is selling, that's great. You didn't get rid of the slow stuff. But the reality about not taking action and taking action and going out and just doing it is, I think necessity is the mother of all learning. And there was no one for me to get mentored by back then. There was nobody for me to follow. There was nobody for me to connect with. It's not like today, right? There was nobody with you to connect with. I did some very high-end programs with guys that came in from the States. And it's interesting, for a kid who hated learning, I love learning when I'm in the business. That to me is the biggest revelation about myself, when I kind of sat back and looked at it, because I've done nothing but learn all the time. And I would always seek people out. We have a retailer here in Ireland, a guy called Fergal Quinn. Fergal did more turnover per square foot in retail than anybody else. And he's a food market. He was a supermarket. He did more turnover than Walmart per square foot. Right? Guy's a genius. So I went, and anytime he was ever speaking, I was there. Anytime he was doing anything else, he was there. If he recommended someone, I went to see that person. I used to stalk the man, like, you know, back before you knew what stalking was. But if you don't take action, like the question really is, if you don't take action, what's the alternative? The alternative is nothing. There is no alternative, and it's fear for people. And like, it is interesting, the whole, you know this better than I do, right? Because this is the world you work in. But like, fear screws people up, and they spend so much time going, oh my God, what should I do? What should I do? Oh, should I do that? What would they think? I just say, and you're not going to please everybody. Look, it's business. I have people in business who absolutely think I'm the best thing since sliced bread. You know, I've had situations with people where we couldn't agree. And as Abraham Lincoln said, you can't please all the people all the time. And as long as you're honorable and true to yourself, you keep moving. You know, and that to me is kind of the maxim that I've done in all businesses. But yeah, what else would you do?
No, you could sit around and be frozen, which is what I think a lot of people do. They're afraid to take that step. I know, I love the stories that you tell about the successes you had, because I know you've had a lot of them. And we're going to talk about the internet in a moment. That's what I'm really interested to talk to you about. But I kind of wanted to lay the foundation here for a moment. So I know you've had a lot of big wins in business. You've had multiple big 6-figure sales. You've built 7-figure businesses. And you've made a lot of money in the business world from the time you were 17 when you made that first giant sale and you walked out thinking, what am I supposed to do? So you've taken a lot of action, and clearly that has led to a lot of your success. I'm curious if you'd be willing to share some times when things maybe didn't go so well, because the other part of business and being successful like you are is this ability to get up and dust yourself off and keep moving. So do you mind sharing a few stories?
Well, no, absolutely no problem, because it's kind of funny, right? When I since you're talking about the internet world, when I went to look at the internet world first, I was saying I can never get into the internet world because my backstory just isn't strong enough. Like I wasn't homeless at 3. I wasn't raised by camels. I wasn't. You hear a lot of the stories. It just cracks me up. But when we sold the property, I was at a crossroads, right? I really didn't know what to do. I knew I wanted to do something myself. I wanted to step away completely from my dad because we couldn't agree on the color. I love the man to death and we get on great, right? And he was actually remarkable to me in the next part of the story as well. Father's love is undying, of that there's no doubt. Having 4 boys, myself and a daughter, I understand that. So I went into we were doing kitchen cabinetry when we did tile shop. I wanted to sell more tiles, obviously was the goal. So we went into the kitchen cabinet business and the bathroom business, right? And that's a whole other saga, right? And when we finished, I liked part of the kitchen business, but I wasn't suited to it. But I went into it because I really didn't know what else to do. So I took a chunk of the money I'd made and I put it into a kitchen shop with the same manufacturer. Now, the manufacturer was a PLC, right? Public limited or public liability company, or whatever they call it over there. And we opened the doors. We opened in a very good location. We were next to one of the busiest white good, which would be ovens, dishwashers, washing machines, that type of stuff, retailers in the country. And we had a shop right next to his. I actually ended up putting stuff into his shop. And in the first 6 months, I made something like 35,000 net profit, having paid myself $5,000 a month. Couldn't make a mistake. I was the second coming of God. I wasn't his son. I was God. I was that good. Right. So I did this great deal with the manufacturer that at the time the euro was coming to Ireland. So we did a deal that before Christmas we sold everybody at euro prices, basically giving them a 22% discount, and we did 180 grand worth of sales. Right. Got the same discount back off of the manufacturer, so I made my margins. Brilliant. Oh, back after New Year, January and February were full. Brilliant. Come back in January to a letter on my desk saying, thank you very much for dealing with us. We have been bought by a bathroom company for our bathroom division. A little company called Jacuzzi. Have bought us. We're no longer doing kitchens. Bye. What? It's a PLC. How can a PLC get sold? Guess what? They can't, especially when they're doing crap and their figures are nonsense and their stocks are only worth 1 cent a share. Yes, if you go and offer all the shareholders 2 cents a share, they'll sell.
So what happened? How did you? What happened to you? Yeah, that's what happened.
So I then went from one bad supplier to a worse bad supplier to a worse bad supplier, and got wiped out. Went to the bank and borrowed money off the bank, got heavily borrowed off the bank at that stage to try and solve everything. I was keep going. And then I got in two traps. And one trap I talk about a lot is some money. You hear about overtrading, you hear about undertrading, but you never hear about some money. And some money is worse to me than overtrading or undertrading. Some money is, let's say you have to make 30,000 a month and you've made 28,000 5 months consistently. You're so close you can nearly touch it. It's only another $2,000. I only just got to get there. But you've done it for 5 months consistently. What happens? You've lost 10 grand. Mm-hmm. If you do it for 12 months, you've now lost a whole month's turnover, let alone your profit, nearly. This is your problem, right? So, and that's what happened. And I went from one bad supplier, so I couldn't finish projects were late, I couldn't get paid. I got absolutely battered to the extent that I had to close. Then the landlord wouldn't let me out of the rental agreement because I hadn't negotiated the property, because I was a cocky young fella going in and I knew everything about everything. I took no one's advice, especially my father's, which taught me put in the brake. My father taught me put in the brakes. Like, no. Couldn't get out, had a personal guarantee. And literally I was inside on the desk one day with my head down the desk crying. And my father came in and then gave me a lot of advice on how to help it and sort it, which I have a lot of respect for him. But the day I decided to close, my wife rang me and she said, "I've news." I said, "Yeah, so have I. I want to meet you." Grand. And we met, and we actually met on a bridge, right? And it was ironic that we met on the bridge. And she said, "What's your news?" I said, "No, you go first. I'm pregnant with our fourth." Great. I'm closing the business. Mm. Right. So now I know we're out of money. I've put everything into the business, which is the thing that most entrepreneurs do. I put everything in and I'm stuck, right? And I can't get out of the property. So I kind of figured, oh, well, look, what are you going to do? You got to do something. So I then opened up again. I got other guys to open up. I gave the shop to one of the staff working for me. And then I went to an Italian company and I got them to fit out the shop. And we went selling, and we moved from $2,000 kitchens to 20 grand kitchens overnight, right? Changed different company, different name, shop was stunning. We were the first ones bringing high lacquer kitchens. We had quartz worktops before anybody had them. And the other thing I liked about this company, the challenge in the kitchen business, a bit I didn't like it, and it was the same in the tile business, was that if I sold you something and we got on great and you thought I was the best thing since sliced bread, I had nothing else to sell you. I couldn't sell you anything else. Like, you tile your bathroom, you're done. Like, it's 10 years time before you want to do it, or 7 at best that you wanted to do it at the time. So I do a deal with them. I become the distributor. I go into partnership with the rep who used to call to me for the previous kitchen company, because he's got a lot of contacts. We open up 7 shops and we build the business to 1.3 million the first year. We're on 30%. And we build the business great. And then we get the distributorship for England, right? Which was huge. We had 66 shops ready to go. And I was in the company on a Wednesday in Italy. Now, the company would be the size of their factory would have been comfortably the size of any decent sized Walmart, right? To give you an idea. And that was just the kitchen factory. They made bedrooms, they made sofas, they made all these other products. I fly home. I get a phone call Thursday morning. Factory's got burnt down overnight. It's gone. Gone. It's like, what? I have 66 suppliers ready to go in, our customers ready to go in UK. Average shop was worth, profit-wise to us, was worth anywhere between 15 to 40 grand a year. God, overnight. How long is it going to take to rebuild? 12 months. So I had, on one of the trips, I had met a mad American, and he had asked me if I was going back and what we do different. The one thing I didn't like with the Italian company I was dealing with is we branded it under them. So they held the shots. It was a mistake. It was a silly mistake. They held the control. And I see that a lot in retail with guys doing brands like, clothes brands and all the rest of it. You're pretty much giving the control of your future to that company. And if their policy changes, you're screwed. So it's one of the reasons when people come talk to me, no, I'd be very high in that. No, open it under. It can be you selling this, but open it under your own name, build your own name, because if you've got to change tomorrow because these guys change the deal or they go bust or they burn to the ground.
Right.
Bonfires keep on blazing, you're in trouble. So then we actually got out of the rent inside where we were. And the American guy asked me to meet him. I said, put a lot of money in my account and I'll meet you, because at that stage I was getting out. He did. I met him. We opened a company then that we're going to franchise around the US on. I did projects in the States. I did Los Angeles, San Francisco, some great crack. Everything was great. We had Long Beach ready to go. We opened another 10,000 square foot showroom in Cork. Seems to be only 10,000 square foot with the big ones. And everything was going great. And we were ready to go. This is about a year and a half. We've been building up and making money in and the rest of it. I had the American guy lined up investors. They were bringing in over $1 million because I was restructuring the kitchen business, because the kitchen business is a stupid business, right? If you're in the cabinet business, I'm sorry, it's a stupid business, right? Because you're selling, fitting, selling, selling, selling. So what we did is the shop sold. We had it designed in Italy, and we had a fitting company that fitted, and everybody got their percentages. So the shop just had to sell. So we took the shop out of the contract, because think of it, the owner of the business had to wear 3 different hats every single day. It's a nutty business. And an awful lot of people in the kitchen business don't make money, not to be bad, but they just don't make money because of that, because there's so many skills. There's huge margin in it. But then your problem is, you sell a 50 grand kitchen, great, you make 30 grand of it, fantastic. Sounds great. But you're only good as tomorrow, then again, you're back up and moving. So we did it. It was grand, and we had a showroom ready to go in Long Beach. And the guys in the showroom in Long Beach got arrested for running a Ponzi scheme. And then I found out my investor was wanted by the IRS.
All bad news. Yeah, that's brutal.
I have a bigger albatross around my neck. I've now got this 10,000 square foot showroom that cannot make money in Cork. It was too big, because the bottom half of it was for the showroom. The top half of it was for the franchise. Now the franchise is gone. But good news. I get a phone call from a guy, and he says, would you do have a look at this problem for us in a place called Cape Verde? We want to put kitchens in and we're getting screwed in tax. So I went down and looked at it, figured out how we could get around the tax problem legally, because it was the same way we used to do it in Ireland before, right? So if you manufacture, you don't have import tax. So I set it up with the Cape Verde government. We were manufacturing on site. So I got all the doors sent in one container, carcass sent in another container, the worktops in another container, as long as they split it, we're manufacturing. Because Ford, we're here in Cork, right? Ford did not make a single screw in Cork. They assembled, right? That was great. 6.2 million contract. I had 66 million worth of contracts on the table. Ready to go. Everything's going to be fantastic. 6.2 million, shut everything down. Cape Verde, that's it. Swan song, out the gap. That'll do me about 15, 17 years worth of work ahead of me. Right? All done. I had a 3.2 million delivered price from Italy onto the island, on the island. So all I had to do was get it from the port to the building, put it together, and install it for 3 million. Right? Contracts vetted by high-end solicitors and all the rest of it, and everything was great. And then there was this little thing that you might have heard of called the property crash. And we lost a ton of money, an absolute ton of money, because we were halfway through one of them. And I got completely, every penny I'd ever made was gone. So onto the internet. If you're still
ask you, because you've got some good, you've had some big successes and then clearly some tough losses. But what I love about you is that you just keep moving forward. You get punched in the face, but you keep moving forward. So then you stumble across this thing called the internet, which
So before we go to the internet, I want to tell you one of my favorite sayings. I'm a big Rocky fan, right?
Sure.
And it was Rocky's talking to the son. I think it was the 5th movie, right? Which wasn't a great movie, but it was the 6th one. And he was talking about, the kid was saying, "Oh, I'm under a big shadow," and all the rest of it. And Rocky says to him, It's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get it and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Life's not fair, right? Something to that effect. That's not an exact quote, but I really like that because that kind of makes sense to me. So what happened was there was a bit of an argument with the guys that were doing the contract. So there was a 6 to 8 month delay, right? So now I'm sitting here with a $6 million contract, right? And I've got 5 kids, and unfortunately the 5 kids like to eat every day. They want to eat every second day or every alternate week, right? So I need to make money. And a friend of mine rang me and said, I'm bringing these guys in and I'm doing a thing called Think and Get Rich Boot Camp. And I was like, you're doing what? With the internet? Not a chance. Not a hope. This is 10 years ago. Not a chance. He said, look, do me a favor. There's a guy coming in from America. He's got family from Cork. I'm not getting nothing great with him, right? But I think, you can Cork, you can open. Look, just dig me over. He's a friend. So I said, yeah, no problem. So I went up and sat there and actually landed up buying 3 programs at it, right? Which was the interesting thing. And the interesting thing on 2 of them, they were god awful. And I learned what I don't want to do. And learned an awful lot of stuff about what's not to be done. And I'm okay with that. A lot of people complain, no, that didn't work for me. That's okay. Because when I consider what I've invested in showrooms, like the showroom, the 10,000 square foot showroom I set up, thing cost me $480,000. Right. So to spend $3,000 or $5,000 on a program, and people say that to me, I just like.
Right.
Right.
Plus, there's some value in figuring out what you don't want to do as well. It narrows the gap. So, yeah.
All knowledge is valuable. That's the thing to me. That I think it's one of the things I've taken away from kind of the journey of this life of mine so far is all knowledge is valuable. Because it's interesting now, even when I go back working with people and working with businesses and talking to them, and they come in, like I was talking to a client this morning. He had a big conversation. The guy's looking for a discount. And I said, but how much quantity are they willing to buy off you? And he said, I didn't ask him. I said, go back and ask them, how much quantity are they willing to buy? And if they're willing to buy enough quantity, you can give them the discount. It was amazing how the conversation changed. Because it's a negotiation, it's give and take. But anyway, I went to Dublin, did the internet stuff, bought a guy called Matt Basak's program, did his program, came out completely. The only other time I was that with computers or anything internet or based that I was absolutely awestruck, right? Was I remember walking in, I'm around this long. I remember walking into an event which was being hosted by a small company called Microsoft, and they showed Excel. And at the time, I was using Lotus 123 in DOS. Okay, yes, I'm that old. I do actually remember the telex, and I do remember the fax machine as well. Right, they were very high tech when we were back at this. Yeah. And I remember walking in and seeing the guy do auto sum, and I went down to the back of the room and said, I need 5 computers, 5 of them. How much? There you go. When did I have them? Done. I'd stay there for 4 minutes. So when I sat in Matt's class and I was doing it, I kind of realized that this is what I've been doing all my life. There's nothing new here. The tools are new, but the actual stuff that they're doing, they're just he's sending emails to a customer. I used to send letters. He's doing, call to actions. Yeah, I used to do call to actions. Call to action is getting somebody to do something or tell them you're coming. There's very little difference. So that was a big eye opener for me. And then I became very friendly with Matt, and I actually went and lived with him in his basement. And then I started on the internet, and then I worked. The contract got delayed for about 2 years, and I worked online. Brought Caroline, my wife, and my 5 kids when my son was 18 to Spain, and we lived there for 6 weeks. That was a huge thing for me, because, and that's one of the things I like about the internet is the internet has the ability to buy you time no matter what your business is because in any other business, my phone didn't stop ringing. From one end of the day to the other, I'd be off the plane. I was solving problems because I was in the construction industry. And the challenge with me in the construction industry, I'm a great guy to have a row, but I don't like arguing, if that makes sense. I'm the type of guy that you and I could, have a full-on screaming match, about something, and we'll go to the pub and have a pint. We come back tomorrow, want to do it again? No, we saw that yesterday, So it wasn't suited. Right. So when I look back at the kitchen business, that was the biggest decision. But the internet was a fascinating place to be even back then. So all of a sudden we're learning all these great new techniques. And, you put your headline at the top, you put your image in, you put your content, you put your call to action button. Yeah, I learned that when I was 21 from a guy called Murray Rayfield. And it was called flyers, right? Flyers going in the door are newspaper ads. Like he said, never put your company name on top. That he was the first guy I ever heard that. All graphic designers put the company name on top. I don't care what your company name is. I haven't decided to do anything with you yet. Why do I care? What's in it for me? And that hasn't changed. So when I saw all of this stuff, I went, he's just doing this much more intelligently than the other way. Because now I can do multiple people. I can talk to multiple people rather than one. And I can talk to multiple people faster than I can even talk to one. And that was the big, aha, you hear what's your aha moment on this. That was my big aha moment. I'm sitting there, I was like, hang on a second. And then we were at the start of a lot of the social media. It came up yesterday, actually, that I'm 10 years on Facebook. You're looking at this stuff and you're thinking, yeah, everybody, I was number one in Ireland on Twitter. Right? Sorry, my apologies. I should have had it turned off. I was number one on Twitter, which sounds great in Ireland. So I'll tell you God's honest secret. I was number one in Ireland. Didn't have the most followers, but I was number one. You know why? Because I was the only one who put Ireland as my address.
Nice.
Everybody was putting Cork and Dublin, so I said for Ireland. Right? And that's part of the game.
Yeah.
So part of our game really is on the internet and the stuff that I do as part of what I do, not that I recommend to businesses to do. Let's be very clear on this, right? That I do and I enjoy doing is breaking the internet, right? Is hacking it, not sending spam emails or doing nonsense, but like Google are the enemy. Facebook are the enemy. They're nice enemies, but they're the enemies because they're between me and my customer and they want me to pay the money to get at my customer, right? So to me, they're the enemy. No, as I said, they're nice enemies and they're much cheaper enemies than say the phone book was or newspaper advertising was or TV advertising. There's no comparison because now you can spend micro budgets, as you well know. You can now spend micro budgets and test something. So the fascinating thing with the internet journey for me is it's taking what people actually know, because people say to me, I don't know the internet. I don't understand how the internet works. I don't understand social media. Look, I'm on Facebook 10 years. I don't understand it. I don't know why anyone gives a continental damn what I had for lunch, but they do, so I post about it. Because I'm not there to talk about it socially. I'm not there to talk about the effect it has on our kids. I'm not talking about the effect it has on our society. Not relevant for me as a marketer and as a business person. And I was the exact same in every business I was in. I wanted to get a reaction. Like one of the biggest campaigns I ever did, right, in the tile business was, you can have this for $9.99 a week. We got a company to finance it. It's a long story. I won't bore you with the details, and there was a picture, and then there was all the stuff that you got and how to contact us. Imagine that. I did that when I was 23 years of age, right? Or 25 years of age, I apologize, right? That's over 27 years ago now. And people say, oh, sales pages now, so no, yeah, they've got a headline, a picture, a video, what you're getting. Now you can put some social proof on because that's needed, and a call to action. And people saying, that won't work. It's worked since print. Why wouldn't it work? It's just a different medium. And no, it doesn't cost, so when we did that campaign, it cost me £15,000 to do that campaign, right? And now if people complaining if it costs them 150 quid, I'm going, what? It's business. All you want to do in business all the time is to find out how much it costs you to get a customer and how much you're making that customer. They're the demographics. The interesting one that I learned off the flyer was 95% of the people, and we did about 600 grand worth of business over it, right? We would have done a lot more if the finance company hadn't run out through the door, but a whole different problem. But the interesting thing is 95% of people that bought the picture didn't even come to the showroom. Like, we thousands of times in the showroom, they bought the picture. That was the biggest revelation for me, because what was my headline? You can have this. Without even realizing it, I gave them an instruction. Right? And so when I get people come and say, oh, I don't understand the internet or the whole challenge of the internet, there is no challenge to the internet. You're just using new tools to do the stuff that you used to do anyway. And the fascinating thing for me, saying honestly, with business owners is, I understand business owners are busy, right? Okay, and I understand because I know it. Like, you know, the rent is due, the lights are on. Just somebody couldn't put diesel in the truck, and the truck's after breaking down in the main road, and the whole bloody country is around it, right? All of this stuff happens. But the one thing that I've learned through my over 3 decades of doing this is, if you don't learn, you're knackered, you're screwed, you're in trouble, in big trouble, because I don't need to know how to fix my car to know how my car runs. And I don't need to know how to fix my car to know that if my car is going, it's got a problem. Yet when it comes to the internet, most people don't know how to drive the car. And for me, coming from a traditional background to where we are now, and you can come back and ask me any questions on the internet that you want, because we've got off on a tangent, which I tend to do when we're talking to this, is it's not, that's not delegation, that's abstination. Handing something off to someone and expecting a result. How in the name of God can you expect somebody that you have a 3-hour meeting with to be able to take your business, distill your business, and put it up on the internet? How? You couldn't train a salesperson. Back when I had salespeople in 3 hours, it would take 3 weeks to train a salesperson properly. You couldn't. You would not let someone loose after 3 hours. You just wouldn't. And then it comes back to them. They go, "Oh, the internet doesn't work for my business." Yeah, but like, you've got no call to action on the site. What do you mean a call to action? Well, do you have any book an appointment, buy a product, do anything with it? No. And it's not working and you're surprised? Really? So you put no till in your shop, or even worse, you've locked the front doors of your shop and you're letting everyone stick their face to the glass and look in. But you won't let them into the shop because there's no way. And God forbid, and I've done this, guys. Look, when we had the kitchen business, we went off and we got this beautiful website done. When we had the name of the business was a cocoon, right? So it was a butterfly. And it was beautiful things emerged. We spent a lot of money and time on the logo and the look and all. Right? None of it matters. You ain't a brand until someone knows you. That's the reality. Right? So we had the butterfly, and the butterfly would come out and go, flap its wings, and all the different types of products like sofas, kitchens would all fly out beautifully on to the screen. We never put our we never put our telephone number. I do apologize for nearly cursing there, but this is how annoyed I am at myself now when I see it, is we didn't put our telephone number on the front page so anyone could find us. We didn't tell you how to do business with us. We didn't tell you how to find us. We told you about this lovely butterfly that nobody cared about except us.
So let me ask you this. I love that story, because that's I was hoping that you would go there. You've articulated several things about in terms of the reasons why somebody should transition into the internet. It is, and I've learned some stuff from you, so I can attest to it. It's definitely cheaper to market on the internet than it is to do it in a traditional way. So it's cheaper to market and it's cheaper to test, quite frankly. So, there's less money going out the door. You can reach the whole world if you want to. It's easier to, and you didn't mention this, but I think it's worth mentioning that it's easier to get metrics back in terms of, who's clicking, who's liking, who's looking at you, all of those kinds of things. There's just the trend that things are going online at a faster and faster pace. That said, it doesn't mean that most people are doing it well. And so I'm curious to hear from you because I know most people going online are making a lot of mistakes. So what are the common mistakes that you see people make when they're making the transition to putting their business on the internet?
So let me give you a little story first before we do that, right? Because
sure.
It's really a question. So if you landed up in a room with me, I talk about Fred the caveman, right? And what I say is, okay, guys, I've built a time machine. We're going to sit in the time machine and we're going to go back and we're going to visit Fred. Fred is a caveman, and we're going to hand Fred bullets in one hand and a gun in the other. And we're not going to say one word to Fred, not one, and we're going to leave. And after 3 weeks, we're going to come back And which option do you think is more likely to be true? A or B? A is that Fred takes these new silver rocks and finds that if he throws them at people, it hurts them a lot more, and he can pick them up and reuse them much easier. And he figures out that if he takes this new club he got and he turns it upside down, that he can kill things better with it because it doesn't break as easy as his wooden club. That's option A. I know it's a really graphic analogy. I do apologize, but it's relevant, right?
Fair
and
point.
then the thing is that we come back and there's Fred lying in the bush with the gun loaded, and he sees a big antelope or whatever, shoots it, and takes it home and feeds his tribe for a week. Which do you think the option would be? A or B? And the reality is it's not going to be B, is it? Right?
No.
Now, if you talk to Fred, here's the interesting thing. Fred will tell you how much better his life is because he's got a better club. That's the interesting thing about that. And the rocks work really, really well, right? So Fred has got an improvement, but he's not where at all where it could be. And that's the gap where business owners fall into. They don't acquire the knowledge themselves to understand it. I'm not saying that you have to do it, guys. Like, we take the Fred analogy. If Fred's a bad shot, but he can teach 3 other people to shoot, he can hand them the gun, give them 3 bullets each, and when they come back, and if a guy comes back and says, oh, I 3 shots and I missed everything, he knows your man's not a good shot either. He can make the decision. The challenge with business owners is they go off and they build a monument to their business called a website, right? Which is completely and absolutely impractical in today's terms. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a website. You have to have a website, but it's not a reason to have a website because everybody has a website. You have a website because it's making a positive contribution to your business. Now, some businesses have brochure sites, which means they don't do anything, but they look good. I understand that because when I was in the tile business, I used to leave brochures. So I would go around and leave a business card, and the guy comes to the website, and it's a reinforcement document for part of the sale. So I know where it fits in the decision process. I don't have a problem with that. It's still a waste. You can do better, right? But if they go off and they build this big, huge website, they go to a very nice person called a web designer, and people think I don't like web designers, but as you well know, we have one of them in our team, right? As an associate, good web designers are very good and they can bring a lot to the party. But the challenge is they don't know your business. And they don't know the one important thing, which is this. And what is the most important thing that a business owner has for coming on the internet? Is you know how to sell your product. And if what you do online doesn't reflect what you do offline, why would you think it would work? It's a fascinating question, because the one thing that hasn't changed in my 3 decades of this is no matter what happens, we're sitting here talking. And if you're still with us, thank you very much. Right? But the reality is that we're sitting here talking to a human being. That has never changed. The interaction of how we interact has changed. We're not physically in the same room, but I'm still talking to a human being. So I'm talking the way I normally talk. I'm not talking in old English, or as a lot of people do when they get the video. They turn into newscasters, broadcasters. And today I'm talking normally and naturally to you. So it's to take whatever works offline and bring it online in a micro way to start with. Because you build a big, huge site. And we have a lot of people who come to us and say, okay, I've got this big site. What will I do? Boom, 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 boom. I'm going to change my site. The very first thing I say, funny enough, is no, don't. Don't change your site. Leave it alone. It's not doing you any good, but it's not doing you any harm either. It's doing what it's doing. You can now go and invest a load of money into your site and get one of 2 options. Make it slightly better or slightly worse. Neither of which are any good. The chances of getting a brilliant result is very slim because there's no testing involved. So normally what we recommend, and also because of these things, right? This thing has completely changed the mindset. And this has been the biggest innovation in sales and marketing that I've seen, right? Because the reality is the mindset of the person watching this, you now have access to over 3 billion worth of people that are connected with this thing in their pocket. But the challenge is they have access to you. And the way I say that's a challenge is they have access to you all the time. So it does. So when we're here, we're on our desktops. We're talking on desktop computers at the moment. We're focused. So when you're on your desktop, you focus. When on your phone, you're not necessarily focused, right? So if I see something on social media, which I consider like newspapers, Google I consider the phone book, right? So that's the way social media is the newspapers, radio, television, depending on which content you're doing. Google is the phone book. If somebody's Googling you, they want to do business with you, right? And you should at least, please God, be able to get them to your premises, right? Or get them to your site, or get them to buy. Like if you can't do that, and those people come to your site, there's something really wrong, right?
So what are the basics? Yeah, I'm curious. So that would be one of the basics, right? Just make sure people can find you on Google. Because I think you're right. I think people complicate it. They, a lot of people want to build a big site and have the bells and whistles. And so I'm curious to hear what do people need as they're making this transition onto into an online world? Because I think a lot of people get tripped up here.
Yeah, so what we advise and what we do and what we help you do if you ever come on any of our programs or any stuff that I do, right, is I would get you to pick your best product, your best customer, which Zane, because you come in and help and work on the best customer. And we get them to pick your best customer, your best product, and build a single funnel for that. And what I mean a funnel is you bring customers into the top and you bring prospects, suspects into the top, and you finish up with customers. That's what you want to do, right? That's what the whole idea of business is. That's what you do in your stores. That's what you do in physical locations. You want to do the same thing on the internet. So that's where we start. Not building this big museum site, which has got 75. Look, if I want to buy a pair of socks, yes, of course, I could be in the market for a new pair of jeans. Yes, of course, I could be in the market for a new pair of shoes. But I don't want them now. I want a pair of socks. Sell me socks. And the biggest argument I get on this is, what about Amazon? Amazon sell everything. Yes, they do now. But when Amazon started, what did they sell? They sold books. They got very good at selling books. Then they moved to something else. They didn't start trying to sell everything to everybody at the start. I'm not saying you can't. Of course you can. But if you build a funnel with a very simple site, with a very simple call to action, let's say buy that product, one product, or create an appointment, or do something. One simple, very, very clear, focused call to action. And you drive people into this, which we call traffic in the internet world. You drive traffic into it, and it doesn't work. You're no laser focused on that to get it to work. If you have a site that's this big, and you've got 35 different products on it, or 3,500 different products on it, and they're not selling and nothing's selling, you don't know where to start. How do you fix it? Or if it's only doing okay, or this one is doing better. Like, I'm going to talk as a retailer for a second. I had hot spots in my shop. They made no sense. I had spots in my shop that if I wasn't selling a tile in another location, I'd move it to there and it would sell. It makes no sense. But it's a fact. Right? So I'll go off, and when I want to sell the tiles, what did I do? I move them to those spots. Right? That's the reality. So the challenge is with people is when you try to take on this whole big mountain, then people get overwhelmed. Then they hand it to the web guys. Then the web guys go off and follow the customer's instructions, which is the blind leading the blind. No disrespect to anybody, but that's the reality. Because you don't know what the customer, the only opinion I'm ever interested in as a person that comes from the length of time that I'm sales and marketing is that of the market. If someone pays a check, it's working. How do I get someone out to pay more checks? How do I get someone to purchase more? How do I get someone to purchase more? That's all I've always been interested in. You'll get loads of advice from loads of different people and all the rest of it. I'm not saying you don't follow in the footsteps of somebody who's done it and get you there to begin with. That's a different conversation. But the reality is, when it comes to people saying about this or that and the rest of it, it comes down to whether the customer's going to buy. If you're giving the customer multiple choice because of this thing is now gone, right? Look at what's working. All of the footsteps are there. That's what guys like me do. We watch, we analyze, we look at what's working, we see what's working, we bring that back into what we're doing. And no, it's single focus, single products.
It sounds like what you're saying is, at least out of the gate, whether you're taking your business from offline to online, or you have an online presence and then you're looking to optimize. It sounds like what you're saying is, keep it simple, test small, keep it focused, because that's one of the trends that appears. What I've learned from you is people are looking for the one thing. Plus, from a psychological point of view, I love that you teach that, because now more than ever, people's attention is distracted because of the internet and cell phones, and people are distracted all the time. And so making sure that you're keeping people focused on one thing at a time is going to grow the sales and business. I love that trick that you teach, because it's so profound. Yeah.
Well, Zane, and that is like the other thing to remember, guys, is fail fast, right? You want to fail fast. Like, again, you've seen this in some of my talks. I talk about the Golden Golf Club. Like, if I said, guys, I'm going to sell you a Golden Golf Club, and it's $1 million, but every time you take this golf club, no matter where you are, what golf course in the world you're on, you're going to take the golf club, you're going to strike, you're going to hit the ball, and you're going to get a hole in one every single time. You would believe that there is no such thing as a Golden Golf Club. Yet when it comes to their websites, they think, oh, I put it up, it works, so it's a Golden Golf Club, right? No, it's not. Not only that, but now you've got a bag of Golden Golf Clubs and you don't know which one to pull out of the bag.
Right. And so even the business owner is confused, much less the client that you're looking to get. The business owner is confused. And I want to ask you this, because this just popped in my head when you tell the Golden Golf Club story. So a lot of marketers are selling Golden Golf Clubs. Essentially, I would say that's a fair thing to say.
Silver bullets, we call them now.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people who know how to. They're building websites and teaching people how to grow their business online and do social media marketing and so on. How are you different? Because there's a lot of people in this space and it's growing, and you're an awesome guy, and I like you, trust you, all those things. And how are you different from everybody else?
The difference really is, I come from a real world background, and I came to the internet. First of all, I'm not 12 in a hoodie, wearing a Rolex and a Ferrari that I've rented. And even if I could throw the Ferrari at this stage, my back probably couldn't hold me getting out of it. And it's experience. So the real difference for me is the fact that there's a couple, right? One is sometimes I come across as heavy going, as brutal, as blunt, and the rest of it. And the reason I do that is I've lost my businesses, and I do not want to be part of anybody's life or take money from somebody. And I've refused clients, or take money from somebody, or bring somebody in that I know I can't help, because I won't be a party to you having to go through some of the days I went through, where I'm sitting inside and I don't know how I'm going to feed my kids on a Friday. I don't want anybody to have to feel that. It's an absolutely horrible feeling, and I don't want to be part of it. There are no magic bullets. There's no silver bullets. They don't exist. Doesn't mean that you can't learn from the guys out there and what they're doing and bring it into your business. I do that all the time. But, you got on, like, let me put it this way. It's marketing, right? And you never see a 35-stone person drunk sticking 3 Big Macs down their throat in a McDonald's lad. But yet, if you go to a McDonald's at 11 o'clock at night, that's what you're going to see, right? So marketing is about putting your best foot forward and embellishing that to the degree. So the other difference is that I come from a traditional background, and I come from a practical business background. So I don't get caught up in the hype of the internet. I love it. I love the fact that it changes. I love the fact that it keeps moving. It keeps me very excited. But I can also understand that as a frustration for the business owner. Because it is difficult for you to keep up to date, because it's constantly moving. And, as per Moore's law, it's now going this way. And it's like, if you just take it alone, Facebook in the States are now taking payments through Stripe on Facebook. So you can now sell your product on Stripe. They launched a new app 3 days ago called Facebook Local. So they're now competing with Google Local, and they're now trying to get people to recommend, and you can go and see where your shops are, or where your friends shopped, and where your friends ate, and all the rest of it. So you're now going to have social proof of your business, which then from a business owner is difficult, because the review situation on the internet is nonsense, right? You see all these review sites, they're ridiculous. And I have no qualms of saying it to anybody. And I'll stand my ground, because the reality is, if I go somewhere and I pay my money and I get the service I expect, I'm not giving them a review. So how does the business get a review? If they do exactly what they're supposed to do to the best of their ability, and they give you the experience that you expect, what you want? Dancing ponies and elephants? What can they do? Challenge with review sites is, it's the old adage. We learned this years ago. I go and I sell a product to someone, and if they don't like me, they tell 50 people. If they like me, they tell one. That's the reality. And that's been around since I started in this business. So the reality is I don't get caught up in the tech stuff, in the rest of it. Don't get me wrong. I do in another part of my business and I love it. But when I'm talking to business owners, it's about talking about the business. Like the internet is a tool. It is an aspect of the business. Even if you're an online shop, the internet is a tool and it's only an aspect of your business, right? The same as your shop would be a physical aspect of your business. I see no difference between a physical premises and your website. None, absolutely none. And that's one of the views that I haven't seen out there. I see no difference. It's a second premises. It might be your only premises, that's fine, but it's a premises. And you've got to get people through the door, you've got to get people around the shop, and you've got to get them to the till, right? So that when you basically look at the function of everything, it hasn't changed. It's moved faster. It's moving quicker. People's attention is now harder to get, but it's also easier to get. Because the reality is that you now have more access to people than you ever had before for peanuts. And the nice thing I like about it is like you can go and experiment very cheaply. You don't have to spend 10 grand on a website. You can spend $700 on a page and $100 on advertising, drive the people and see does it work. Where else could you open a business for that type of money? Right. And being honest with where Facebook is going, you might even have to spend the $700 in a year's time. Right. So these are the things that happen. So that's the second one. And the third one is I stopped my traditional business and went to do this full time. And that was a big decision. It was a big decision for me. But what that's given me is an amount of knowledge of a lot of the good and a lot of the bad. So you're saying about other internet marketers, and I don't ever knock anybody down, right? Because A, I learned very young, it's not good to knock your competition. And B is, everybody's entitled to make a living. But I see a lot of people doing damage, which annoys me because they're saying, oh, you should have to do this, especially on social media. You should definitely do this though. And you should be doing this strategy and that strategy and this strategy. And this would really work for your business. And this will work for all businesses. No, it won't. Like, it depends on the demographic of your market. It depends on the sex, the location, and all of this type of stuff. Where's your market hanging out? Go hang out there on social media. That just makes, so it's a common sense view, right? And the other, I suppose the last thing is, I'm not sitting here telling you I'm God, right? What I'm telling you is that we will help you to, if you ever works with me, we will help you to achieve your goal and achieve your outcome. And we will certainly help you not make the mistakes that I've made and the expensive mistakes I'm doing silly stuff, right? But in the end of the day, what we're going to get you to is that your customer, we're going to help you to get customers to turn up onto your stuff and ultimately buy, because that's the only objective. Everything else is nice. The only objective is to get them done. And a lot of people, it's one of the reasons that we do a lot of digital training with the academy we're going to opening and all of that type of stuff, because people want that type of knowledge. But any of the physical programs, whether you're in the room or you're in the room virtually, we work on your business. You go through your business, you write down your business. Zane is one of the guys that dives in, and he's absolutely brilliant guys at getting people to hone down on who their customer is, what their best product is. And we then take that and we digitize it and we bring that up into a funnel. We then create the ads, we get you to run into it. But you're working on your business. This isn't us telling you what you should do. This is us guiding you with you through the technology maze and taking the noise and the fluff and the nonsense away, so that you have a very, very clear route to market, a very, very clear response, and a very measurable response. Because I like what you said where to go. Again, when I talk about it, when we used to do newspaper advertising and all of that type of stuff, right? And I spent a lot of money on that stuff over the years. I now call it clairvoyant advertising, because you went, yeah, somebody's going to like this, right? Whereas the difference with the internet is it's metric advertising, because I can now go put up a page. I can even put a page on my existing site and hide it and put it up there, run an ad to it, and see do people buy it and see how people are interested. Like, I've even said to people, if you're thinking of bringing on a new product or service, put it up, test it, see do people buy it. No, you've got to be ready to move afterwards, right? But at least, even if you get people to come in and like, or to go on a waiting list, but if they click and they go to the page, there's an interest. Where else can you do that type of market survey for 50 quid?
No, it's extraordinary. Yeah. The power of the internet is extraordinary. And I agree with you. If I can just brag on you just for a second, man, because I enjoy working with you. You certainly have integrity, and I agree with you. I think that's a big thing that you bring is you have this integrity where you're looking to exchange, value and so on, but you're not looking to ever take advantage of anybody else. The other thing I like about you and what I'm hearing you articulate is you're the kind of guy. You have your head in the clouds. You're into the theory and you're on the cutting edge of what's going on with the internet. I'm going to ask you a question about that in just a second. But you're on the cutting edge of what's happening online. But I love the fact that you have this business background, traditional business background, because you got your head in the clouds, but your feet firmly rooted on the ground. And a lot of people don't have that. And I think that allows you to keep things simple. I've watched you as you and I have talked, because I spent about 3 years before meeting you, in retrospect, wasting a lot of time and money because I was confused and things weren't simple. But you were able to just say, look, here's the simple road, and here's what you need to test. Test small, and fail fast. And I love your approach. It's very different from anything else I've experienced, and it's different in a refreshing way that brings a lot of value and results. So I just wanted to say that. And then
I'm Irish, so I don't know how to respond to compliments.
I know it's fine. You don't have to just sit there. But the question I wanted to ask you is this: if you could think about what's happening with the internet right now, because to your point, and you said this, it changes very, very fast, and that's one of the frustrations that I deal with, because I'm not an internet marketer. I'm an expert in leadership and management. Not so much in the marketing. And so I'll be working on something and suddenly it's changed, and it's frustrating because now I have to go back and do some things differently. So, but you're right there on it. And I'm curious what you see as maybe the top three, if you can boil it down to the top three most important or most exciting changes that are happening online right now that most people don't know about.
So I think the first one is Facebook, right? Everybody knows about Facebook, so I haven't exactly dropped the huge bombshell there. Facebook, I think within the next 2 years, when we're talking about the internet, we're going to talk about Facebook, social media, and Google, right? I think they're actually getting into that space. I think they're following the same route as Google were. So when I started, there was Alta Vista, there was Yahoo, there still is a bit of Bing out there, but the reality is no, Google it is an expression. So Facebook are looking to become their own ecosystem, and it's going to change. We're going to see a lot of changes. I reckon they're going to start charging businesses, and I think that's something you've got to be very, very aware of. That from a business point of view, it's going to be a cost. I don't think it's going to be an extraordinary or a very high cost, but I do believe that they're already doing it, right? They've reduced the likes, your interactions on pages. We see people talking about that. Facebook is getting people unliking their pages because they're not interacting with them, yet they're not seeing the posts. There's a lot happening. So I think Facebook is really a hot spot because of the amount of information Facebook has. I used to say Google knows more about us than our mother. Facebook knows more about us than our mother, our father, our aunts, our uncles, our brothers, our sisters, all the family together, right? It's phenomenal, the amount of, even down to the fact that if you've got Messenger on your phone, Facebook have the right to turn on your microphone without notifying you. Right? So it's slightly scary, but from a marketer's point of view, we'll talk on that. So that's the first thing. What's going to happen with search is very interesting. The second one, where Google is going to go. We've seen Google take some clawback steps. We're going to say retrograde steps. That's not correct. Clawback steps. They've actually stepped back on some. So Google have made it very, very hard for you to get your business found. Google have now realized that was a dumb thing to do, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. So we're seeing, before, when you put up a website, all your pages were indexed, all your pages were ranked. So in other words, people could find it if they're typing under a keyword, and all the keyword guys is, you've got long tail keyword and short tail keyword. You've got a question, you type in a short question, that's a short tail keyword. You type in a long question, it's a long tail keyword, because you don't go to Google unless you have a question. And that's the reality. Right? So you hear all the noise about all of this black magic SEO stuff. That's what it boils down to. And does your site answer that question? So it's over the next, Google are having a problem, right? 28 minutes a day on average, people are spending on Facebook, 6.5 minutes a day on average on Google, right? So the longer that you are on a platform, the more money the platform makes. That's the metric that's out there. And the third one will be, and this is a kind of a real blind space one, is the whole VR niche. I've seen VR come out, virtual reality come out about 4 times in my lifetime so far. It was scary to watch Mark Zuckerberg's speak at the Facebook conference, and he was talking about they were going chipping people, and you're going to actually, they reckon you're going to end up with a chip in your brain. That would scare the big god out of me, but I did like some of the stuff they're talking about the virtual reality of. So, for example, Facebook will know your GPS location, guys, is getting much more intelligent, and it's getting much. It's coming down, right, literally to the inch. Okay, so you'll come home someday, and your phone will ping and say there's a note on the fridge, and you look at the fridge, there's no note, but you hold your phone up, and there's a note in your fridge, just for you. So it'll be, Zane, you're late home, dinner's in the dog.
That's great. And you get to wash up, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But that's coming. So the interesting, so at the moment we sort of have the real world and the virtual world. And over the last kind of 3-4 years, there's been a lot of stuff like beacons and all different things that are talking. They're even talking here at the moment because of costs of staffless shops. So in remote locations, where you'll come up to the door, you'll scan your phone, and the phone will be your membership. Your card is attached to membership. You'll go in, you'll be scanning the stuff with the phone as you're going around, and you put it into your buggy. You pack up and you walk out, and it's charged your card, and you never meet a human being, right? So that to me is where the virtual world and the real world are now doing this. Yeah. We have shrooming as a topic. We have people checking the stuff, and especially as the younger generations come up, because for my age group up, we didn't grow up with this technology. But you go back 15 years, and they pretty much have now at this stage. So using your phone as an extension of your life is normal, and that's the big thing. Where phone technology is going to go is the real, to give you a fourth one, even though you didn't ask, right? The fourth one really is the phone. Where is that going to go? Wearables, phones, glasses. I don't see the glasses working personally. I just think that there's so many health and safety issues around it, it'll be nuts. But it's going to be interesting to see where the augmentation to the real world comes in. I certainly see earpieces coming to be more prevalent. I'm amazed at how little that in the phone business they've done on audio. I'm absolutely gobsmacked in this stage with the length of time the phones are out that you can not have your phone read your email. Right? It just intrigues me that your phone can't read your email. Right? You can't go into Siri or whichever one you have and go, Siri, do I have any emails? And yeah, okay, name who they're from. Yeah, I have an email from Zane. Okay, read it out to me. Great. Siri, I want to put this as a reply. Boom, 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 and it gets done. Like that has to come. So it's going to become, it's fused into our life. It's still a very personal device, but it's fused into life. But it's the actual. It hasn't integrated into our lives, right? It's not. You can still go out without your phone. You might feel weird about it, but you can still do it. I think the time is coming where you want. Money is a huge issue. Finance, currency is going to be a huge thing. Cash is going to die, and the banks are trying to kill cash. The governments are trying to kill cash, not being into conspiracy theories. But think about it. If everything is digital, they know where it is, what you spent, where you are, and the rest of it, your taxes are done, everything is done. So you're seeing all of that type of information. Like Google now tracks me wherever I go. I get a report. I can go in any day in the last 12 months since I turned it on, and I can tell you exactly where I was, how many miles I traveled, how much I walked, how much I drove, where I went, how long I was there. That's all there now in my pocket, right? As long as my phone doesn't go flat, right? Which is a big issue that they have to solve. So that technology and coming in from a business perspective, I think the opportunities are getting bigger because the borders are blurring, right? And it's, for me, I see a lot of retailers, especially clothes retailers, come, and we did tell them 5 years ago this was coming. So it's kind of like a lot of guys, when I meet them, I'm saying, like, we did, like, it's a bit about complaining about the horse is bolted, but the horse has been shot, boiled, and turned into glue, lads. Like, you know, so I wouldn't be worrying about the saddle at this stage. But the thing is they don't see the other opportunity that they can get out as easy. They get in. The challenge is that they're up against big brands. So, but that model isn't any different, right? Because if you look at where retail went, and when I was retailing, it was one of the arguments I used to have with my dad, right, was the fact that chains were the future. You could not survive. The independent could not survive. Now, when you look at it, the manufacturers are actually know the chains through the website. So it's a lot of things change, but it's like the phone. The phone is now bringing back the watch. You know, phone killed the watch. Now it's bringing back the watch.
Yep.
You know, so honestly, Facebook's the big one to watch for me, because they're doing some really exciting stuff. Facebook's out to kill the website. No, my advice is don't ever kill your website, because your challenge with Facebook is Facebook have all the data. Facebook have everything. You don't know who the person is. You get told that there's 700 people liked your post, but you don't get told who they are. However, if you'd like to boost your post for $3.96, you can get the access to all these people again, right? So to me, it's the fox owns the hen house. It's not that the fox is breaking into the hen house. He's actually owns the hen house and is leasing the chickens, right? And Google's the same. Think about it when you go with the numbers you're getting back. And these aren't to scare you or to upset you. It's just understand the game, right? Because I understand the game. It doesn't bother me. I know that, you know, I'm dealing with Facebook, and Facebook want to extract as much money out of my wallet as they possibly can, right? Come on, it's business, right?
It's business. But you're right. Like, I think you're right. You've got it's like anything else. You want multiple streams of income coming in, and you also want multiple presences. And so you're leveraging Google, you're leveraging Facebook, you're paying for the privilege to leverage that. But you have your own website too, because then you own that. You can do more with it.
Well, you can bring a user in, and you can get the user to give you their information. If you get their information, and a lot of people don't realize that even with that information, you can go back and advertise to those people on the likes of Facebook anyway. So you're much more targeted. Like, we live in the information age, right? And we'll finish this because we've been on forever. Unless you've got something else you want to ask me, but it's your time too, man. But the reality is we live in the information age. So if you don't have information, if you don't know how this works for your business, if you don't know how to do it, and I'm talking about an overview, not necessarily, because I recommend that when you understand it, you then outsource it or delegate it to somebody who's better at it than you are. That's what we do as owner managers. We find people that are better than us at doing stuff, and we give them the job of doing it to get us a better result, so we make more money, right? But you live in the information age. So if you don't have the information, and you're not gathering as much information about your client, about everybody as you possibly can at every junction that you possibly can. And I didn't even talk about chatbots, because chatbots are still relatively new. We could be talking for the next 2 hours on this, guys, at least. But, you know, like, even with chatbots, at least with a chatbot, I find out who the person is who's interacted with me, right? No, whether Messenger is going to work that way, and whether people are going to take the constant interruption as well as another interruption, how that's going to... No idea. What we're playing with it, because again, it's, you know, early bird catches the worm. So a lot of times we're moving very, very quickly, and it's what's his name? Gary Vaynerchuk says, you know, it takes a marketer to screw it up. You know, so everything worked great, and then as marketers come in and screw up, because we come in to push it. Like, my job is to push the boundaries, so that when I meet with likes of yourself, I'm telling you can do this. So my job is to push it out and see what's happening, go out and do it. But like, we're in the information age. If you don't have the information, you're going to get wiped out by somebody who has, and it's that simple. You know, it's the reason that the program that you and I work on together, we call Digitize or Die, because it really is, you know, you're going to digitize or you're going to die. And I've seen it happen to so many nice people. And the real big thing that frustrates me as a traditional business owner, having moved to the internet, is the one advantage that traditional business owners have over us guys online, right? No disrespect to anybody who's making their money online, right? But the one thing is, you have a personal relationship with your customers that most digital people don't have. So they understand the numbers of the person, but they don't understand the person, right? And that's a huge advantage for you to be able to turn that around and then take what they have with what you have, and now you'll end up here. That's the beauty of it, because you're selling to the person, you're talking to people, you're meeting with people, you're engaging with people. It's like in your training companies, then you meet people, you talk to people, you build a relationship with them, you have a relationship, you understand them. So if I said to you, give me your best demographic, you can tell me your best demographic, right? Because you already know it. You don't have to spend $500 in ads to find out what your best demographic is.
And I know their names, a lot of them too. And I love how you do that, because that's another way to separate yourself out there in the information space. I agree with you. One of the things that I heard a long time ago, it's a cliche phrase at this point, I'm sure, but you don't want to become roadkill on the information superhighway, right? And I think I know you've helped me personally kind of figure that out. And so you've talked about a lot of different things that are going on online, and I love it, because I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and I'm thinking, we could talk for 7 or 8 hours about all the stuff and still not even have enough time, because you haven't even talked about, what's going on with websites. How are those changing? Facebook advertising, you only dipped your toe in that, but there's so much to talk about there. YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, just all the stuff that is out there, even things from a design point of view that's getting customers' attention more so than what has traditionally worked. I love that this stuff. That you're able to teach people, but I think one of the things that I appreciate about you a lot is you're able to take all the noise and you mute it, and you hear. And so I remember when you started me out with figuring out how to make online work, Zane, here's the path. Like there's all this stuff out there. We'll get to that, but here's the path. And I love that you sketch that out for me and for people you work with. So. 2 more questions for you, and then I know you've got to run. One question before I get to how people might be able to contact you if they want to work with you. One question is, seems like everybody's going online, but you and I know that's not the case. Can you talk just briefly about how new this all really is in reality?
It's in its infancy. That's the reality. It really is. It seems like it's been here forever, but it's not. And certainly not since the advent of the smartphone. As I said earlier, the amount of people that are now coming onto the internet and going onto the internet is still growing exponentially. You still have, countries like China and India and all of these to come yet. So that we're still at, I think, just slightly over half the population of the world is on it. So that shows you how much of an infancy this still is at. It is developing at a rate of knots, as you said, but the thing with most business owners is they have kind of embraced it because they had to. So that's with the newness, and that's the fear. And it's kind of a case of, I remember when I bought my wife, because she was working in a company and she used to go out repping, I bought her the brick phone, right? Remember, it was about that size. This was the flashy,
massive.
It wasn't the one case. It was the one that you actually hold, had no wire off it, right? And I remember talking to my father and saying that'll never catch on. The interruptions will drive people nuts, right? And a lot of people kind of look at the internet that they're doing an ostrich. If they kind of ignore it, it won't go away. I'm sorry. It's a tsunami that's coming, right? And you have a choice. You can build a surfboard and surf with it, or you can drown. And unfortunately, that's the reality. So it is in its infancy, and but it's developing so fast. I do understand the overwhelm. But what you talked about a while ago, Zane, was interesting to me, because like an awful lot of people are on the internet, an awful lot of people are on social media, an awful lot of people are doing this, an awful lot of people are doing that, but they're actually not using it as a business tool. Right. My goal on the internet is used as a business tool. If you contact me on Facebook, yes, I'll come back and answer you and all the rest of it. If you go to see my life on Facebook, I'm sorry, you won't see my life on Facebook. You'll see anything I tell a stranger on the bus. That's the reality. I don't share my life. I don't go on, saying, oh my God, I had a really bad day today, or oh my God, I had a great day today. I don't do any of that stuff. That's for my family, my friends, and all the rest of it. So I treat it as a business tool. So if you're on it, guys, and it's new to you, yeah, I understand that, and it is overwhelming. It is, but it isn't, because what you want to get to is get something to work and keep repeating it. And once you get something to work that keeps repeating it, and by work I mean it makes sales and it makes money. be it an appointment where you're ringing people up and you're talking to people, or you're going coaching online, or you're going to have automatic appointments through a booking cart, or you're going to make sales of a product, whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter. There's only so many different iterations of this that's there. It's to get that piece to work, because all of the rest of it doesn't matter. Like, you don't have a business unless you're generating money. It's the cold hard fact. It's called a hobby. If it's not making money, it's a hobby, right? And if it's a hobby, it's fine. I've no problem with that. But call it a hobby. Don't call it a business. A business generates income, right? And then it has to generate profit. And if it can't generate profit, then what's the point?
Right.
Right. So, but yeah, in the face of things, the next 10 years are going to be way more fascinating than the last 10.
I think you're right. And but the good news is, if you're not, to your point, if you're not in yet, but you want to get in to using the internet for business now or in the very near future, you're still getting in on the front end of it, because most people aren't using it for business, as you said. Yeah,
most businesses believe they are. So that's why using it, and I'm not comparing anybody to a caveman, so please don't take this the wrong way. But a lot of people are afraid with the gun, and they're using it as a club, right? So yes, you're having a slightly better result, but you're not having the result you should have. And that's going to be the difference to longevity, and that's going to be the difference to long success, because it is going to merge. Like, people are going to be in your shop ordering on their site, right? That's coming, without a doubt. That's coming, right? They're going to come up and they're going to walk around. My daughter now works with a retailer in town, right? And they check each one of them has a mobile phone in the shop. It's a company mobile phone. I saw this today for the first time. I was like, they check their stock on the mobile phone. So doesn't it make sense that the customer can go up and check the stock on the mobile phone? And doesn't it make sense that the customer could even pay and just pick it up and go? Right? So these are all the things that are coming. So if you don't have this and you haven't embraced it, I'm sorry, as I said, there's a tsunami coming, and that's your challenge.
So if somebody wants to escape the tsunami, and they either want to build a surfboard because they don't have one yet, and they want to transition online, or maybe they have a surfboard but it's not working the way they want it to work, right? And they want to optimize it better. How can somebody get in touch with you?
I normally say, maybe you have a surfboard that's actually a tree.
Or that. What's the best way to get in touch with you so that somebody can get some help?
So these videos, I'm going to put this interview up on the site. So you're either on one of my sites and you're seeing it, or you're on YouTube, and there'll be a link below. There will always, 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 have I said always, be a link below. That's a hint, guys. One of the things that you do. You always have somewhere to go. It's like me bringing you into the shop and me not talking to you,
Awesome tip. So that's a free tip there. Always, and I remember learning that from you too. Always let people know how to get in touch and what you're up to. So awesome. Tony, thanks for the time, man. I appreciate it. This has been really helpful and informative and fun. And yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks for taking the time out to have the chat, Sam.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
Take care.